quickly.
Hello,
How
and
do you
welcome to
do?
a Voice of Generation X.
Happy birthday, Andrea!
Aw, thank you, honey.
And Andrea sadly did not know that we were going through a Verizon outage, and
Oh my
she got
god.
very few phone calls on her birthday. I
Yeah,
couldn't even
people
call her
call
more
me
than
during the
once.
day. Alicia called, my boyfriend called, but then I was sitting there that night, I'm just
And
sad
then
and no
we're
one's
all in
talking
SOS
to me.
mode, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What's her number? But anyways, so
We have some
I
hot topics.
we were talking about we're going back and forth saying like, what have you been watching? What have you been up to?
Yeah.
And she does Sex in the City right now. I'm getting
It's
deep, deep,
comfort
deep.
reruns. It's really sweet. It's
I
like,
do I do my Real Housewives. That's my TV
mhm.
lobotomy. Like I can watch it and just completely all my stress and everything fades away. But what I want to talk about is getting your take on we have the election approaching, not to mention the fact that all of these new documentaries and it's almost like I feel like the past three elections now that we're going into, this is the third, that this is when the internet goes wild with different hacks, with different like
Conspiracy
extremes of like
theories.
stories,
I
like
mean,
not
we were
even just
talking
that
about
too, like all of a sudden there'll be
overnight.
huge
I was like,
lawsuits that drop and stuff like that, and we're in this complete mess that so much is happening at once that it's like, wait, what?
yeah, it's really
So
overwhelming. It's really overwhelming. When I was trying to share my 40th birthday with the vice presidential debate, and I was like, I don't want to be watching this. I want to be doing something fun. But I'm like, okay, Vance, well, this isn't going to
oh,
speak my
so
vote.
I was called stupid on a date because I'm voting not with my pocketbook, and I was like, yeah, I'm voting with my vagina and my uterus right
Yeah, I
now,
totally
and
have to wait for
also my
my
sovereignty of
basic
being
human
able to
rights,
survive.
bro.
Yeah.
The
And I was
fact
like, I'd
that I
like
want
my
to be able
friends
to
to be
leave
able to stay
beyond
in
this
this country
election.
and not be deported illegally.
Yeah,
Like,
bullshit. Besides, I barely speak
so,
Spanish.
but I have to keep it on the low, even in LA. So what I saw, and I wanted to telling Andrea about this. If anybody watched recently the new Matthew Perry documentary, they were revealing a lot of things about how doctors had drugged them, and her and I were getting into about different voter rights, and I let her know what was shocking to me, even if you go to rehab, right? That gets logged in and considered a quote unquote disability in many ways because you have addiction and behavioral health issues. So now I was letting her know I'm not even gonna call them friends. We're gonna call them quote unquote acquaintances or people I've heard talk. And they were talking about people with disabilities are not some in 39 states actually don't get to vote based on certain rights,
That,
and that made my jaw drop.
that
Like, and it's all they don't have a regulatory system
freak
to
out.
where it's very much like if
I'm
you're
like,
under
what's that?
conservatorship.
I mean, what are the criteria? Like,
Okay, so
pulling
I can
them.
actually pull it on my iPad what I was reading to you
Okay,
earlier.
like
So it's
I
a
want
very
to vote.
broad range. That's what
I
makes
want to
it
vote.
very. This is one of the scarier things. So people are
Yeah.
saying that they're hating on Newsom because Newsom came through and he was like, "Listen, I'm going to drop some laws and statutes real quick because I want to remove the disability ban."
Yeah.
I didn't even know that
Yes,
existed
all
here.
people should be allowed to vote. I mean,
And these
our
are things that are
rights
as
are constantly being
mundane
trampled on.
as like some things were something as minute as schizophrenia. But if
Yeah, I
anybody
mean,
considers you in any way to have an impairment
no,
or
I mean it's an
a
impairment, but it's not. It's a psychological issue, not an intellectual issue. I think that's where people get really confused. I mean, there's a difference between Down syndrome and schizoaffective disorder. They are
well, I
different
mean,
types
I
of
think
disabilities. You know.
that there's tons of different like I thought it was crazy when I found out that if you had been incarcerated even for let's say
Oh, you didn't know
a
about that?
year
If
that you
if you're
can't
on a
vote.
felony, you can't vote. Yeah,
Yeah, one of my buddies who
Trump can't
literally
vote. You can't even
oh
vote.
my gosh, he didn't spend any time in prison though. So
Oh,
okay, voters with disabilities. Here we go. The Civil
yeah.
Liberties Breakdown and Barriers ballot. That's a different
Okay.
one.
Vote.
It was the one that I just had sent to you. Okay, I wanted to read over that one.
Okay.
Okay, because this one. Okay, Katsufai. Oh, you know what? It'll be in my text messages because I just texted you.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you guys. I want to make sure that this is really on point because I think this is something that we really need to talk
This
about.
is crucial.
Thousands lose right to vote under
Oh
the
my
incompetence laws. That's what it's called.
incompetence laws.
Uh,
Excuse me. This just makes
so
me so
this,
angry
so
because
you,
I have a master's degree, I have a
so
bachelor's
I,
degree,
and if anybody is wondering where I'm getting this from, it's
I've written 10 books.
stateline.org.
I'm most certainly not incompetent, especially not intellectually. Goddamn hope
I
I.
mean, and what's scary is laws in 39 states, including Washington, D.C.,
What about
allow
Nevada?
judges
What do
to
they say
strip
about Nevada?
voting
Because I
rights
live in
from people
Nevada.
from anything from schizophrenia to Down syndrome. And some And also they, in the archaic language, they say that are considered quote unquote idiots or insane persons. Okay, I know quite a few idiots and insane persons, but they still have the competency to vote.
I happen to be linked in on like social media and such to all sorts of
So
mentally
this
ill
is one of the
people who are in
interesting thing that they
academia,
say.
who are like professors and
Well,
have
there's a thing that
degrees higher than mine, PhDs and such. Yes, are you in a way?
oh, sorry. So they're asking about limits here, and this is what I think we should talk about.
Yeah.
That there's no agreement among legal and psychological experts over whether certain people with disabilities should be disenfranchised. But there is no set standard of measuring the mental capacity needed to vote. So they need to put some limits in place. That's what I'm saying. Like, this needs to be brought up for sure. Like, if you, under civil rights, if you're under a guardianship, so let's say, and I know this myself personally, like if you come into money or your parents are not that great, like they can do a conservatorship over you. Look at Britney Spears. She couldn't vote.
Right.
Who knew?
Oh, that's too bad.
And
Really
then it
good.
says under here that what should be required as the minimum standard. Is there a clear answer? And you know what? This all they says it's stemming from is voter fraud. Fear of that is what started all of these things from the polls. So
Well,
they go
voter
ahead and
fraud would
talk
be right.
about. I mean, they're
They
going
put.
ahead and putting in people with
I have to do.
Alzheimer's, and then they get as simple as someone who had alcoholism. And I'm like, bro, you're all
Oh,
over the place here.
I
Like, who's
am a
doing this?
formerly alcoholic schizoaffective, but that doesn't mean I don't realize the importance of this election and the importance of
But the
Democrat
thing
candidates.
is that
Vote. I mean,
everybody
that just
has the
sounds like
ability
the
because
sort of
there's
voter fraud where they
1.5
take
million
away the
adults under legal guardianship. Did you know
Democrats
that? So
right wing.
1.5 million people cannot vote in this country that could totally swing the vote.
Oh,
Anyway.
oh my God, I'm so concerned. I am really concerned.
Well, the thing is that what you can do is you can go ahead and go on your whatever state that you live in, and I believe that they're actually passing, which I will make sure, so you can put on the little links because I
Because
do
there
see
was
them on
one
here.
time when it wasn't a presidential election, but they didn't send out ballots to people that were housebound, like such as myself, that like don't drive and can't, can't get
Yeah,
themselves to the polls. And I was like, I need to vote. I want to vote. I need to vote. It was for
I mean,
president.
and think about
Let's
now with
vote.
the
Support
homeless
sports.
crises. Like
Oh
what
yeah,
are
the
they doing
homeless totally.
there?
I don't know. Yeah,
So, well, the interesting thing is, it was saying in here that if you're like in a group home or assisted living, and
oh,
or let's be honest, in a sober house or whatever the fuck they want
oh, the institutional.
whatever the heck that they're calling it
Yeah.
these days. But that's just a very interesting statement for me to think about, that 32,000 Californians have lost their right to vote in the
That's
past decades.
terrible. That's terrible. And it's California's
And if
votes
we're
that
talking
you need
about
the
mental
most. Seriously.
capacity,
I mean, I'm sitting here in this. They call them battleground states for a reason. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, I haven't
well, that
seen
is actually very interesting
bullets
you bring that
flying,
up,
but I
because some
have
of the
heard bullets
battleground states
outside, and that
have
was
the highest
nuts.
illiteracy rates,
Yeah,
which I
Nevada
feel
is
is
the
very
least well
interesting.
educated and the most highly armed state in the union, which is a little alarming,
Yeah.
just a little bit. Like,
When they were
and they
bringing up
asked me
about
what all
how
my friends in
Arkansas could be like really the
lovers of
big
outer state.
kicker,
What?
I'm like, they were talking about how Arkansas could be a huge like flip kicker. I'm
Yeah,
like,
we're as
wait,
bad as
what?
Arkansas, and that like
Arkansas?
makes me not want to say we. I mean, I'm not sure
And
there
no
is a
shame to
bad.
Arkansas or anything like that. I'm just saying, I don't generally go to flyover states.
Yeah,
And
I know.
also,
I
how is
just
the
feel terrible
population
for
of
it,
like
even though I live
North
there
Dakota and South
half until
Dakota,
this
which,
year. That's how I
I
feel.
mean, the whole thing is just very scary. The
It's
fact that
very
they could,
scary. It's very scary
and it
because I
makes you
don't.
realize
I'm afraid to
how,
go vote in person because people with guns
oh, I'm not, I want
out
that sticker.
in Nevada about polling stations. People with like giant guns.
Oh, but you're in a different area.
Yeah, that's because I'm in Hicksville. People with giant guns hang out at the polling stations trying to intimidate us, and so I'm voting by mail like any sensible woman would.
Well, the thing is
Especially a woman.
I don't know what it is about Los Angeles, but people think I
LA,
get
I would vote.
really weird narratives. Either they think I'm walking around with the Proud Boys and stuff like that, and I'm like, or Antifa. I'm like,
Oh
what? No. Like, do you see I've got my dogs in a tutu? No.
no,
Like,
no.
that's not happening. No, no, no,
It's
no,
not
no,
very hard
no.
to not seeing all that.
I mean, I just find
I
it
know it's
so
kind of more than
interesting.
aesthetic. It's
I mean, we actually are so lucky. I mean, I know that because so Andrea and I, we actually had a disagreement because I hadn't lived in America for the vast majority of any presidential votes. I was always overseas. So I never looked at myself. I was like, when it came around to the Trump Hillary vote, I was shocked I was still in America.
That time.
So for me personally, I didn't see the fact that I even had a say in it, and I didn't know how much it meant. So
Right.
she thought that I was going
I was
anti-Hillary
really
and going
worried. My
pro-Trump.
best friend was
Meanwhile, I'm just reading
Pulver,
the
and
book
I
about
was so
Melania
afraid. I
because
was
I
like,
want
I
to
don't want to
disprove
like
that
say
she wasn't a
goodbye, but
model in Milan.
if she votes for Trump, she might like turn me in to the
So
police.
we
Which I
ended
think
up
was
not talking because she thought that I was
so.
pro-Trump when I was like,
I
no,
didn't
I'm
talk to
reading
her for
Melania's book
a
because I know that
long
bitch didn't
time,
model in my city.
and it was just such.
But
Oh,
now
I feel
in
bad, but
retrospect, it was actually very jarring
it
because
was
that
self
changed the
protection.
way I
I was
looked at.
scared. I was scared, but
Honestly, that was something that we thought would never happen again. We're like, well, now we know that it was Russia that this happened. Now that more and more stuff is becoming
but
prevalent,
there's stuff happening
I'm
now.
just saying that if we don't actually learn from our history, we are bound to, like, it's going to repeat itself
Yeah,
again.
that is very
And
true.
it actually does matter. I know the Electoral College has a huge vote in it.
I
But
hate
however,
the electoral college.
I mean, look at how crazy it was with Biden. We had to wait like 10 days to know who the president was.
Yeah, and also it's like it's not the popular vote, which should be just the popular vote that decides the presidency. I mean,
And the
otherwise that
interesting
way
thing is,
we would have won,
I'm,
and also
I guess we're a part of the popular people. I did not know how many people did not get to vote. So we actually have to be a voice, not just for like ourselves. Like I'm like going out there and voting for instance, one of my buddies, his girlfriend was a year younger than him, and his parents went ahead and threw out the whole like statutory rape, 1 year apart. He had to do 1 year in jail. Can never vote.
okay.
I'm going, wow, we are kind of back in the days right now. You know, we
Yeah,
lost Roe v.
but there
Wade.
are people that
What's
want to take
next?
America back, and we are not going back.
Okay, that how far back are we gonna go? Like
There are
Salem
people
witch
that want to take
trials
it back
back?
to the 1600s and burn witches, okay? And as far as I'm concerned, they burnt women they could not control, and
And
they
you know
burnt
what's very
women
interesting is I
who
feel
were
like
not
this is
obedient
almost
little trad wives and sorry
this
about
reminds me a lot of when
not.
remember after during the Crusades, the old white men would
Oh
get
my
together
God, the
up in
Spanish
England and
Inquisition.
rewrite the
Yeah,
Bible
the
and all these
Spanish
laws.
Inquisition. They burned a lot of witches, and they just tortured horribly.
I
So
mean, they're burning books, you guys. This is getting a
weird.
little bit.
Just for having
I
ideas
mean, we're
different
able to
from
have 8chan
Catholicism.
and
Catholicism is
4chan.
insane. I'm sorry about it, but I'm
We're dealing with a whole different realm to where
not.
if we can control you by fear,
Yeah,
or
fear is very powerful.
like, and
Fear
one
keeps
thing
you
that I found
place.
was incredibly insightful. So my brother passed away from ALS, and prior to this, he was going through huge depression, and he lived up in Idaho. I bring this up because it's about voting and a lot of these people feeling like they weren't like a part of the world or society anymore.
Right.
So BBC Our World came out with a episode saying what's killing all America's white men, and they actually called it a worldwide epidemic because the suicide rate in places like Montana and whatnot for about a decade went up higher than anywhere else in the entire world, and it spiraled. So these men that, because you know the changing of industry and the fact
Right.
that
Well, they're no longer at the top of the
it
heap,
was
and they
white men, and
face that.
this came out a bit ago, so it's mainly Generation X, and if you're in a rural
Yeah.
area, to where it's very
And
hard
rural
to
areas,
teach
yeah,
them new
especially where
skill
they're
sets.
taught that they're supposed to be at the top and they're not
Well, I mean,
because
our country has
if
changed
you don't,
so drastically with
they
the
have to
internet.
just go up in
Like
school.
now we can actually literally you can work from home. Like look at you, you're like I'm podcasting, I'm good at
I don't know. This is work. This is a hobby. This is a very
But I
involved
mean, we can vote from
hobby.
home. We can do
But you
pretty
can work
much.
from home. Yeah, people do.
I mean, it'd be interesting if you could do your driver's test from home.
Oh my God, I wish. I
That
wish I could
my
apply
dog
for
does
my
her
driver's
service
license.
dog
I left
renewal test
a
from home.
replacement. I have to get a replacement, and it expired yesterday on my birthday
Oh,
because
that's
I
pretty
couldn't get
easy.
an appointment in time. I mean, that was
If
so
you can
annoying.
get your passport,
I mean, I
your
don't go
passport
tomorrow,
card.
and I don't really, I
No,
don't
you need a
drive
passport card that they give you that
DUI,
same
but
day.
like, yeah, if I need any ID, I have my passport. But like,
But they do a passport card too that looks just like an
yeah,
ID
I
and
was
it
thinking
scans.
of getting just some sort of ID card because it's not like I drive or
You
everywhere.
want to do that because you don't want to walk everywhere with your passport. Trust me, I've been there.
Oh, I don't want to do that either. No, I don't want
I
to.
was really lucky. So yeah, that's
Even
another
though
thing
it's
that
like out of date, out of date
this
and
is going to be
broken.
exciting because this will be the first presidential election that I'm physically walking to go vote there. I
It is
had the mail
exciting.
in,
I will say it is
and I'm
exciting, but
like,
it
because
is
I
a
had my
delay
mail
at
in
the
to go.
school.
Now I really have issues with the mail. I sound like an old Irish person. Like, you know, back in the day, they were like, "Oh, the USPS, the Postal Service."
I think the
Like,
mail was bad in Ireland. I don't
but because
know.
we are having so many issues with like mail not arriving or there being fraud
Oh
or
yeah, the
so
supply
at this
chain
point,
issues. That's
I want to have that sticker on, and I actually will blast that all over social media. Like, I actually went, yes.
Good for
Yes,
you. Interesting. Yeah.
this one means a lot to me because I never thought I'd be living in a society that we became more advanced. However, the rules and laws that were binding us to this country became so primitive. The fact that I now have to worry, like if let's say if I did get knocked up, which doesn't happen with me, I've got health issues, that's expired. But if I were to, I'd be like, yo, we got to take me down to Mexico. Speak of the devil.
Yeah.
They
I
just
would
the
get
Business Insider yesterday on the first, your birthday. They just
that's
announced the main headline is pregnant family moves to Mexico and raves about how like wonderful their life is now.
well the
And I'm
food is
going,
better.
huh? Weird because up here we're bitching about all the Haitians, or we're not, but
I'm not.
Haitians, people that come up from Mexico, and like they're saying, okay, you know what?
Oh, I know we keep losing you. Well,
Well,
I
I
mean,
got
we
it.
can stop if you think we've
But
got
once
15
let me
minutes if
just
we got into the good stuff.
Well, we also have to make
I'll go
sure that
keep
we
going.
make sure and give some like
Oh, the
reading
body
material that goes
brokering.
along with it.
Yeah, you were going to talk about that. Oh,
Oh, the body brokering?
yeah,
Which
because
one?
we were both. Since we met in recovery, that's sort of a
Oh yeah, so the Matthew
current
Perry
issue
movie. This is a documentary that just came out because
that
what
I
they're
have to
doing
say.
right now is they're with Michael Jackson how he passed away, so there were all these doctors that were giving him excessive amounts of ketamine. But they got into the whole industry thing. So
I
Kelly
thought.
Osbourne's
Oh,
one of many people who they show all of the places where Andrea and I used to go to AA meetings. And we weren't into all that noise. So I was like, you come in with an
I was
alcohol
kind of on the
problem
edges, the fringes,
and then you
but
leave learning to know what boofing is and like how to become a drug trafficker. And you're like, wait, what?
yeah, the
I'm
stuff
good.
they teach you in those places is gnarly. I
I
learned
mean, I
a lot of
mean,
it
you.
in prison, which I
I
hope
just
I
put a lot of like
never need
cotton
to
in my
know.
ears,
I
like
certainly didn't.
metaphorically speaking. It's very
Yes, but
dangerous. But body
yeah, in
brokering's a
rehab
real
and
thing.
detoxes, they teach you a lot of
Well,
stuff you
so the
learn of
thing is
not.
insurance companies, since the Affordable Care Act, there's a movie called Body Brokers that'll map it all out for you. If you're to go into treatment centers, especially let's say you're homeless and you're a junkie and you live in Oklahoma. And I actually knew some of the people that were considered quote unquote body brokers, but that they had a different name and they were considered like elite, like upper echelons within the recovery community. I'm like, because you're flying somewhere to do an intervention. No, you're chasing down a junkie. You're giving them money, letting them get high on the plane, taking them to a bougie ass place up in Bel Air. Their insurance company is going to pay out. It's something I believe it is $300,000 if you go through the entire treatment process, and that means you do
Whoa.
detox, you do rehab for 30 days, and then followed up by living in a sober living and doing IOP.
Oh my
Just doing
gosh, I'm
that,
glad I did
and
that
every time
first.
you go out,
I would
when
not.
okay, in the recovery community they call it going out. That means you relapse they get paid more. So they would go to meetings and some we
That's
would be
why
there. And there would
recovery
be
was
people looking for if you look weak or if you look like someone who's jonesing for like her and I were not and by the way, neither one is better than it's they're to each their own, but they're very different, I would say, in equivalence. Like I
that
think they took a look at alcoholics and were like, they're not going to be as much as people that were addicted to like street drugs, like the younger
right
kids.
much.
I met one kid who had gone in and out of 42 rehabs in less than
Oh
7 years. All different states.
yeah.
And each state, if you get an out of state insurance, they just milk it.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. And that is
And
just
now,
sad and messed up. You're
and
basically exploiting and
this is
profiting
where it all comes
people who
together.
are at their
So
most
with those rehabs, they've shut down recently so many mental institutions, and these are also just mental hospitals. Like
sucks.
some people need to go in there for eating
Some
disorder
people need them,
issues.
and some people need the support.
That I mean, every single
Not
eating
everyone
disorder
has
place I've gone to
the
has been in a
support.
psych ward or
Yeah,
next to it, and
and
everyone's
I've
like, "Wait,
definitely been to
what?"
my share of psych wards. I mean,
And that's just one kind of them, and you can go in because of anything going on
yeah,
in
I
your
went in
life,
for grief. I
But
went in
now they're sending
for
people to
suicide because I
rehabs.
needed to sort of be hysterical and
Well,
stuff.
at rehab,
So I
they
checked
say that
myself
they're
in because I
behavioral
can't. I
health.
couldn't do that in my apartment.
But if let's say you're at the hospital, right, and you go in under a 5150 hold,
Yeah,
and they don't
you're
have any
51,
beds
like
available,
I taught you
you
about.
have these independent places that take insurance that will claim that they're behavioral health and also um, substance abuse. Those should not be shoved
Oh, they're
together. So
making them all do a double diagnosis.
I met this young girl. She was not even 21 yet,
That
and she was
is,
going.
that's gonna
She was a
cost
freshman at
a lot
UCLA,
of
and she was actually going to go live in a facility down in Orange County, and it was known as the heroin clinic. I'm like, girl, you've never even
Oh my
tried drugs. She had
god.
never even gotten drunk before. She was going through
Oh, the poor
schizoaffective,
little
and she was
thing.
like,
She's gonna learn all the ways of how to be a
oh my god,
hardcore
I was the
addict, and
last
she
person
doesn't
that
even
she
see
saw
her
before she
boyfriend.
left, and
And
I'm like,
They should
I
not be
looked
doing
into
that to
it.
mentally ill people because we are
And well, and they don't talk about this shit either. It takes
that
somebody
is fucked
like
up.
Chandler from Friends to die for people to actually go like, this was a guy that didn't deserve it. But it's
Dual
like,
diagnosis, I mean, if you are dual diagnosis, they can't help. I've been to them, but they're
it's
also
because they
major
shut down
hookup
so many of
spots
these
because you
things.
totally meet attractive people that have to share some things in common
Oh
and some
yeah, I
things
mean,
kind of more hardcore. So you
also it's
don't
really
want to
hard
be
to be in this
dating that
society
happen.
too.
And
But think about the fact that this little girl, she's at UCLA, her parents aren't around, and she's doing her freshman year. And she
Mhm.
has a psychotic break for the first time.
Oh, poor
And they
thing.
brought her in and they had
I
her in
have to
the
be
ER and they
very
didn't have
young.
room in the psych ward for her. So they
Oh.
transferred her down to a heroin
That is
detox
so
center.
messed up. When they didn't have room for a
And I was like,
place for me when
she's
I
going
was
to be exposed to
in the
so much
90s,
stuff.
they just said
And
stay
it's,
home, go to your dorm, and
and
don't
this
kill
is so
yourself.
sad
It
because
was
she's
like, okay.
dropping out of college for this, thinking that she's actually going to get a
Oh, the
hold of
poor
something.
girl.
And when I
That's
saw all of this, I was like, please,
awful.
please call me. Like,
Oh, that's
you're going into
awful.
this completely blind. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
did
you
not know
didn't even have her parents there to advocate and know
what.
what's going on because these places are so crafty and how
Yeah,
they
I know
talk about
some
it.
of
Like,
those places.
oh, we will have therapists for you. I'll tell you what you're going to have. And maybe some places have a thing or two, but this is from not only like visiting people, but actually like seeing things firsthand. You
Mm-hmm.
will go into a place, you'll be put in a place where there's no actually medical doctors there and or nurses. Maybe they have one like nurse practitioner, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
or they have one like RN in training that's distributing the meds for the detox center.
Oh
But the
God, what?
most that people ever meet with a doctor is a 5 minute consult over the phone doing a video visit. And then they just give
Really?
them a cocktail of
That is
drugs.
much worse than what we got. My goodness.
And so Andrea got to see, like, I couldn't even do outpatient because I was a liability because I actually do have diseases like lupus and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm a liability.
They
That's
kicked
why
you
they're
out of
kicking me out.
ability.
So because they actually do not have the licensing to have doctors on staff to be able to take care of someone even that like, okay, let's say you have
I think that's
epilepsy.
what
Oh, my service dog.
service
Oh.
desk word. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so Madison, so she's registered as an epilepsy dog, and
Mhm.
I have a fainting condition called POTS, and yes, I sometimes I smoke pot, but POTS is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome,
Right, because
aka
you've told
I
stories
faint a
where you're
lot.
like out walking along and then suddenly you faint and
Yeah.
take you to the
Oh yes,
hospital
you heard
and
me
you
the other day. I
yeah.
was like, I'm gonna
Okay.
faint.
It's terrible.
So because if you have more than two syncopal episodes, you are required by the DMV. They call them from the hospital if you go in to have your cardiologist monitor you for 4 months, and then they have to sign off that you're okay to drive.
Oh.
I'm one of those special token children, but I once I found out about this, I was like, I couldn't with good conscience know that I could faint behind the wheel, even though I hadn't had that happen before, and I could kill
Yeah,
someone's
you would
family.
die. That's not a good idea.
That's just not, it's not bloody fair. I'm not that, I mean, I can't be that selfish in life. Some people
Yeah,
can't, I
that's
can't.
the reason I don't drive too because I take certain medications that make you so you really shouldn't drive.
Well,
And
that's another
no,
thing. I'm
I'm not
like,
do that.
why don't they
Like
have an
often medication.
actual,
So I
they should actually do an applicable thing for a driver's license what they're doing to voters. Let's see that. Let's see their competence level. Like, the amount of idiots I see on the road that have like rage and stuff like that. I'm like,
oh
woo, we should do
no,
like an emotional
I'm not
capacity
fan.
test.
I mean, but
I mean,
yeah,
I do as a passenger, I
emotional
ride around like with my
confidence is
flipping the
a little
bird, but
bit.
that's just me. Like,
I was
it's
always a
LA.
really meek, mild mannered driver because I was like, I just didn't want to get like followed to my house and shot. You know,
Oh no, this is just I'm joking more than anything, but
I know, but
especially
I'm sort
when
of making light of something.
I've been hit by 3 cars on my street walking my dog across the street, and
Oh
one dude yelled
no!
at me. He was like, "Did you dent my car?" I was like, "You hit my
You're like
leg.
you hit my car.
You just ran into me." Like,
I've had certain. Oh God, that is just terrible.
yeah, I mean, well,
I'm so
okay,
glad
so
I'm
I'm
not
used to living
her.
in Europe
Takes
to
out
where,
all this worry, all the
well, it's
stress,
a lot different. Like, so
all the
pedestrians do not have
stress.
any rights in Europe. So you run and you book it and you hope you don't get hit by a tram. Like, cars can park on the sidewalk. So
Yeah, that's
here,
another thing.
pedestrians have the
My
right of
neighborhood
way.
has no sidewalk, so it's like really hard to take a walk. I try, and I'm like, this feels sort of like I might get
It's
hit in
ironic
the
to bring
car.
that up. In Rancho Palos Verdes, where I was living, that house just slid down in the landslide. It's probably close to
Oh
Catalina
dear.
Island now. I watched
Oh
it on
my
TV. I was like,
gosh, that's
I live there.
terrifying.
I was like, that's
That's
terrible. That's
terrible. I'm glad
my
it didn't happen while you were there. Oh my god.
house. I would not have even when I got moved. The movers were like, "This house looks like it belongs in a Dateline episode." I was like, "If you only knew."
Ooh, but
I thought it was
seriously,
funny
yeah.
at the time because it's like a house at the end of the hill at the very top of a mountain,
Oh
but
yeah.
it would take two
You're
hours
kidding
to walk
me.
down to a CVS.
Oh
And I was like, Oh my! And they don't have any sidewalks. It's just these really scary streets,
Yeah,
and I'm walking
that's
with my
here.
dog.
It's like no sidewalks. I can't walk to the CVS. I've done it.
I mean, I would just think that I'm such a tall kind of like with a little white dog dressed in a tutu that it would be like, oh, don't hit that bitch. That's going to be a lot on your
That's gonna
insurance
be
policy right there. You know,
messy.
like, and I'm not saying I'm better than that. It's just like I know the stigmas people have thrown at me. I laugh them off because that I don't think of myself in that context.
I
I'm
think
like,
it's good to laugh at yourself sometimes. I mean,
I mean,
I have to
if
sometimes.
I were to take everything literally, I would not leave the house.
Yeah, like
Like,
I was. In fact, for example, I've already made a silly reel about this, but I have a TikTok. But I was on my birthday yesterday. I was doing what I do for fun when I don't have my friends around, which was basically drink tea and watch The Love Witch in full
so
makeup
you did a self
costume.
care day, like you
Yeah, I
did
did a
all of
self
your
care day,
favorite
and to
things
me,
your
like
way.
that was self care. But then the
But you
doorbell
know what?
rang,
That I would
and
so
this chick
rather
comes
that be
in,
my
and she's like a
birthday.
teenager looking for a frisbee, and I couldn't, in good conscience, not let her
Wait,
get
what
a
is this
frisbee.
show?
Yeah, the doorbell rang as I'm like sitting there with my eyelashes and my makeup and my teacup, and she comes, and I was like, oh, she wouldn't go away, and I'm like, okay, what do you want? And she's like, I have to get my frisbee that I threw over the fence, and I'm like, well, okay.
How old's this chick?
She was like a teenager. She seemed totally fine. I mean, she wasn't
I
being
know, but
unpleasant.
I'm thinking they were gonna be 5 or something.
Oh no,
I
she
was
had a
like,
big dog with her, so I could tell she was watching
oh,
out for
okay.
her own safety. And I was like, no, she seems legit. So I let her in and let her just walk through the house and go out in the back. I was just kind of embarrassed because I was sitting there like
No, I think that
playing like a like,
that's so niche. You're probably
and I had
considered
my
in her
candle
mind
up
of
her
being a
lit,
teenager. I'd be
like
like,
the
I have
TV
this
on, and she was
fabulous
probably just like,
neighbor.
well,
No,
okay, well,
you
this is
probably looked like
interesting.
ethereal, like she just walked into like a Tim Burton like
It kind of
show,
looked
you
like
know?
that. Like my house kind of looks like that. I
Yeah,
was
like
just
it
like, oh my
reminds
god,
me of
that's
like a
adorable.
Matilda,
I
like
felt like such a
that
baby.
walks across the street and like, who is this fairy
Who is
princess?
this?
Like
Is
drinking
that your
tea,
old
like it's
lady
just
who drinks tea in the
no, I
afternoon?
love it. I'm like
It
I'm
was kind
envisioning
of
you being in like
funny,
a
and
real
I
life
mean,
Alice in
luckily she
Wonderland.
was no trouble whatsoever. She got a frisbee and
Of
got
course not.
out,
She's
and
probably like
that was it.
idolizes you.
Like
I
I
would.
just felt
I
silly.
like the
I
kind of
felt
neighbors
really
that I had.
silly.
I mean,
I felt
E40 was
silly, and
one
I
of them.
laughed, and
That's
I was
cool,
like,
but
well, this is what cat
I don't
lady
have
is
any
like.
fabulous neighbors. No, no, not in this building. No, 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 no.
I guess I'm the hater.
Definitely not. There's the curmudgeon across the way
The
that
one
looks
thing
at
that
my dog
sucked
and goes,
about it is I made a like real YouTube TikTok about it, and it mistranslated. The AI mistranslated it at the end. I say, I'm that neighbor. Sorry about it." And the AI wrote in on
I am that
the caption,
neighbor.
"Worry about it," and like you don't need to worry about a tea drinking eccentric.
Oh, this
You
sounds
don't need
like the
to
shit that
worry
happens when I
about me at
dictate.
all. I have like no danger. All I'm going to be
Oh
doing
my
is
gosh,
sitting in
that's
my
so
house,
interesting.
like,
That's what you just
yeah,
said
isn't
is a
that
huge thing
kind of
because
a problem?
everything is
That was a
transferred.
problem. I was upset about that.
Well,
I was
everything's
upset
gone over to AI now,
because
and
it went on
I
Facebook with that AI stuff, and you can't dispute AI. So I was like,
Um, I do Chat GBT, which is an AI function, but you can choose with your phone whether or not you would like to activate the Siri with the AI. That
uh,
depends on if you want to be doing all the updates. So, I mean, the thing is if you want to be working along with technology right now, you
oh,
have to learn how to adjust to AI. So,
yeah,
what
I
I
know I
do
have to
is
adjust
before
to
I
it, and I'm
start
like, well,
dictating,
enunciating isn't a strong point for me, so
well,
it's
so
okay.
I don't know how TikTok works necessarily, but are you able to first see it, like proofread
Well,
what you're saying?
on TikTok you can't, but on this
Oh,
software
you
you
know, on
can,
your
and
actual
I do
phone,
go
this
through
will
because they
help you
get
out
stuff
a lot.
wrong.
There, if you go on your phone under Siri and
Mm-hmm.
and under accessibility under your voice, they'll
Oh, the
ask
my
you to speak
hand and my
157. I think it's
that one's
150
real
or
slow.
100 or 200 different phrases, and they're hard. It's like, did you know that the first president to cross the Atlantic Ocean in 1973 lived in Brooksby? I'm like, that's just one quote. I'm like, what?
Mm.
And so I just started fucking around with it. Pardon my French. And I was doing all these accents, and all of a sudden my AI was on point. My Siri understood me. My dictation was like amazing.
Oh, I might
So,
do
I mean,
that.
that's just
Yeah.
food for thought for everyone
Because
because
I
these
don't
things
use Siri
can.
that much. I mean, I'm still kind of adjusting to telling my television, play this, play that. It's
Remote
nice,
does
but
not get me. No,
yeah,
it does not
mine
understand.
will. I'll tell my television, play Pulp Fiction, and it will. And
Oh, I'll say something to Siri. My phone, my watch, my iPad, my computer, and my TV will start talking back to me. And I'm like,
yeah, that gets a little weird.
well,
Like I was using those
that's a little
glasses you bought,
awkward.
those cool glasses you told me about, those Ray-Bans, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
recording with them and stuff. But then Meta, I guess it is, would
Yeah, it's
interrupt
meta.
in the middle of my recordings and say stuff, and I'd be like, hey, and I had to give a serious talk and say, look, when I'm recording, this is a form of filmmaking, videos, whatever you want to call
You're,
it.
yeah, you're streaming. You're
I'm
giving somebody
streaming. I'm busy. Do not talk. Do not interrupt
right.
me.
And
Do
right
not
now,
interrupt me
actually,
when I'm working.
Carrera is the
And
most recent
then
one.
I
Did you go
discovered
with
they didn't
Alexa?
record that part. They just clipped that part out. And I'm like, well, good, because you get me completely off my game when you like jump in there and say something, you know?
Right. And like, so I was given those glasses and I got those glasses after I was given them too, because I went through 4 pairs of them in like
Oh
less than a
no,
year.
no.
People would jack
Yeah,
them.
I have one.
But then I'm realizing they're able to get into all my online accounts.
I would
But
not be
they wanted me to stream
surprised. Those
like my
things seem
life.
like they
They
can
wanted to
kind of
see what
like
I see from the outside.
they see through
And
my eyes, but I when I wear them out and I am not pressing record, I know something's recording. I know something's live
oh
streaming.
well,
I know there's a
that's
live
the funny
stream.
thing. I'll be
I
getting my new
mean,
iPhone 16 Pro Max
you
today, and
know.
thank God because I have
Oh,
Pegasus in my phone.
sweet.
That was
Good.
interesting, especially when Verizon's like, you wouldn't even know that these things transpire because a lot
Yeah,
of these
it's amazing.
embedded things are within your phone. Yeah. And then I'm like, so I basically know now, like, I should probably not do my raunchy McStaunchy, like videos for
Yeah, I would
myself.
say
I don't have
anytime
like
you're doing that
raunchy
sort of
ones, but
thing,
no,
keep
that's not
the
really my thing. It's more
technology
of like
turned
even taking medical
over.
photos, right?
Oh,
Like if I
medical
have them
photos.
for that.
Oh,
And
right.
like when I had to document things for lupus, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that separately. I'm not going to have it linked.
Yeah,
So I'm
you
just
have to
learning
be
different
careful with
ways.
that stuff sometimes
Oh, and by
because
the
you
way,
never know
did you
where
know
it
the
is.
newest phones and software are satellite phones?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, I
actually
think
very
technology is
interesting.
both wonderful and can be scary. You just have to be careful with
Well,
it.
it's more because we've had so many
Know what you're
earthquakes.
doing.
So I'm like, okay, so if
Also, it
the
depends on what
towers are not
remains of
working,
power, how things are going to go. I mean, I'm worried
I
about
was
Elon
shocked when I
Musk.
saw the news
I'm
report this morning. I was like, it
reasonably
actually
pro Zuckerberg and all that
I almost feel
family.
like they were
What do you want
lying
to
in
call
tigers and bears, oh my, when I got the first.
Yeah.
It first went on Next Door Neighborhood app and it said 153 earthquakes in California and Los Angeles this summer
Holy shit.
alone.
But I
And I
will.
went, well, bam. But in Malibu, like we just had 3 more earthquakes in the
Out here
past
they
day and a
happen and
half.
people freak out, and I'm like, what? There was an earthquake?
I'm like, you know what?
Jesus.
I lived through the '89 earthquake in the Bay. I mean, granted, I was
Oh
3,
my god.
but I was at
Scary.
preschool and yeah, I remember and then later on watching the actual bridge and cars drive right into the water.
Oh my
Like
god.
it snapped. It was just,
Terrible.
it's huge. So anyway, out of it, I mean, I know we went kind of all over the place, but I think we talked about some pivotal news streams. Because like the one thing is, I didn't even know that you couldn't get so many different news channels where you're at. And then
Well,
I
yeah.
think to myself, like, yes, I'm okay with spending the bill that I spend today
Mm.
because I know what it was like when I lived in Italy, and the best I got was dubbed "Murder She Wrote." I'm like, are
Oh
you
my god.
kidding me?
I used to
Like,
watch that with my grandma. It was a sweet show. I mean, it kind of made me wonder, like,
that's when I
who is
quickly
this
learned
lady
how to
to keep
jailbreak an Apple
trying?
TV.
But yeah, I mean, old joke. Old joke.
I mean, you want to be able to have at least some sort of news venue that's
Right, and I
providing
do
to
not get
you.
your Fox News. That's the whole picture.
I've been watching again the whole QAnon movement and all that, and it's
What
just
QAnon stuff do you
wow.
watch? I want to like research
What?
to
Okay,
get
so I've
so
watched the one on Vice. The
up and strange, but I don't
the
know.
one that I love the most is the HBO one that came out, and it's an 8-part docu series, and it's called Q Into the Storm,
That's
and
basically
then let's see, I do the Q Anon that's on Vice that you can still watch it. They're playing episodes, and
okay.
you get to see people around our age that and one of the it's a woman who looks actually kind of similar to you, but she has all brown hair, and there's a guy he's mixed. I think he's like a Persian mix or something to that accord, but his parents were like refugees when they came over. So he goes to Trump rallies. He's trying to just get the story, but he's a great journalist.
Oh, really?
And the two of them just get completely annihilated. And at one point, he's actually scared for his life. I
Yeah,
watched this and I'm like, this is the
journalism is
kind of shit.
scary. I mean,
And if we don't learn from our past, it's bound to repeat itself and become even
mhm.
more ostentatious and crazy with the movement. The more that we accept the crazy and don't talk about it and pretend it never happened, then I know on the left we're always trying to, or it comes across this way. I'm just going to let you guys know from what I've heard personally. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm saying this is public opinion that's come my way. Is that the left is too afraid to offend anyone, that our message is getting lost in translation because the right's coming out with forthright, like hard hitting hate, like, or
Yeah,
like the facts
hate.
that they believe in, like,
Yeah.
Haitians eating dogs and cats. Oh my. It's like, oh, come on.
No, it's not. That's not happening. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see. Like, it's kind of, if you think about it, when Hillary ran, everybody was so hyped up about a woman running for president.
Yes.
I have not, I have not even heard somebody mentioning about her being a woman this time around.
Really?
Now all I hear about that
I
people are having
hear
issues.
it, but I don't hear it as much, and I don't talk to as many
Now it's
people,
more
so
about
I
her,
don't
the
have
race thing that Trump's
to. Which
confused
is
about.
actually not that bad. There's some that
It's
this.
like she said she was Indian, but she didn't. I'm like,
Oh
wait,
right,
this
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 whole
is your
like major
problem now.
misunderstanding that people can't be multiracial. I'm like, you are.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm like, you're like literally clouding my brain with fluffaluffe.
Yeah,
Like,
with
you know what I mean?
inconsequential
It's the art of
nonsense. I
distraction,
mean, do
you
you
know?
understand fractions? I mean, that is
I
just
mean,
so.
honestly, some of these things, like when they go
It
down and
makes
break down the
them look bad.
economy,
It makes them look bad, honestly.
I mean, then again, we are coming from, both of us got our like masters and stuff like that, so we did have to do a lot of like, okay, I remember being in high school and I had to do macro and microeconomics, and there's the economic bloody cycle, and it's like even if we didn't have these huge things like, for instance, the housing crisis, and then we also went into having COVID and
Yeah.
so on and so forth, that drastically changed our world. We're also having to look at either way out of it. It would have ebbed and flowed. It didn't matter if it was Republican or Democrat. Doesn't matter. But I'm just more at the side to where this is not about being a Republican or being a Democrat. This is about straight up the rights that I will be losing and the people
That's
that will be
really one of
disenfranchised and
like.
possibly kicked out of this country.
Mm,
And that's the kind of stuff that really, I don't want to go into martial law to where we lose democracy.
oh,
That's it.
that'd be terrible. I mean, I
I
don't mind
mean,
staying in my house, but the violence just sounds awful. I'm so scared of that.
and there's not even a new
I,
Melania
I
book about her modeling that I can laugh about. Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, she was funny, but
no,
well,
because
anyway, I
she
think we're
claimed,
at this
yeah.
close. We're gonna close. So,
Yes, we are.
thanks for joining us for this
Oh, and
episode.
on little links for if you guys want to know anything more about the things we brought up earlier with voting rights, disability
Oh
rights, and
yeah, we
things
can
you
do
can
an
do.
end
And
card for that. All right,
yeah.
all right. So thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.